Episode 4 is with my good friend Tobias Haslinger, who is the co-founder and former president of UTS Boulder Soc. The UTS Bouldering Society is a project that I co-founded with Toby a few years ago, and I've only shared a couple stories about this, but this episode we really dive in onto how we started the society and why we did it, and how it's grown and evolved over time into new leadership. And leadership was a big topic we talked about in this podcast.
When you get really stressed, sometimes you go into this fight or flight type thing, like anxiety, and you just want to get out of that. And for me, the quickest way to get out of it was just do it myself, which is not a great trait for a leader. It showed me that you really need to understand your team and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and then learn how to comfortably delegate. And I'm not saying this to say that the team were not good enough or below par or something, but when you're a perfectionist, sometimes you're just convinced that your way to do something is the best way. And so it can be very uncomfortable to let someone else do it. And I think that's something that I struggled with. And it's something I learned a lot about, is that sometimes you just have to kind of sit in the discomfort of that, and that your priority as a leader is to actually delegate and to manage rather than to do those tasks. So that was a crazy experience, and I really learned a lot about how I am as a leader and how I could improve. And to answer your question as to would I do it again, 100%, because the next big group environment I was in immediately after being president of Boulder Soc, I subconsciously and consciously put all those practices into play, all those learning experiences into play, and had a vastly different experience.
And what I learned from doing that, from starting a club and leading a team, was that you have to look after your team. It doesn't matter how much focus you put into the club members. In business, it could be your employees. Maybe you're working on a project with your union partner friends. You have to look after the people around you. And if you don't, then nothing else matters. Well, my first priority was to make sure that each of our exec members felt like they were involved with the club, that they had a mission, they were looked after, they had a purpose. But when I had this conversation with Toby, and I realized that I need to become the leader of my life, how do I look after myself? How do I look after people around me? Because it doesn't really matter like how much success I try and strive for. None of that's going to matter if I don't look after myself or the people around me in the process. We all go through life in different seasons, and sometimes we work harder through different seasons and we struggle, but then we come out the other side, and we have some times where we're relaxing more, reflecting more, involved in our community more. And that's okay. But I need to remember that I am staying true to my word. Just a quick announcement before we return to the podcast. If you're enjoying this episode of Midweek Motivation, you may be interested in checking out the Midweek Motivation newsletter, where every week I'll share with you a useful lesson on resilience, mindset, or fitness, or health in general, straight to your inbox. You also receive a free workout of the week, useful resources, and the latest videos that I've got up there. And just if you want to keep updated on my life, you'll find everything there. If you're interested in that, go ahead and hit the link in the description below, or go to Substack and search up Midweek Motivation. All right, let's return to the podcast. Then I'm making sure that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I'm saying I'm going to do something for someone else, I make sure that I go and do it and not forget about it. And when I have the opportunity to take that rest, I'm going to need it for recovery. As an athlete, then definitely I need that for training wise. But then also, how do I keep myself sustaining all the efforts, all the hard work, all the hard times with the business, with continuing to travel, to staying connected with different people, building the podcast? I have to make sure that I'm looking after myself. And there's no right way to do it all. Sometimes it's going to be not a good balance, but it's recognizing that and then taking that time when you can. Episode 5 was an awesome one to do. I interviewed Karan, who is the founder of 0 to 1. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. And the big topic that we talked about throughout the podcast, and this is their mission and their brand statement, is about taking that first step.
Having big goals, that's scary. It's super important. But having this balance between being realistic and also not having your emotions so tied to the goal. For instance, not being close to hitting your financial goal, for instance. If you were so tied to this goal, you will have some negative emotions or experiences from this outcome. Feeling discouraged from continuing this path. But if you didn't set this high enough goal, you made some significant progress towards it. It's like, say, someone who wants to lose 20 kilos in weight and in 1 year. they only managed to do 10. 50% of the way, you can think of it that way. But 10 kilos is a lot of weight, and you can still see a physical transformation from that. And the fact that you've already built this momentum to lose the first 10, the last 10 is going to be easier because you know what to do, you know what's working. You should have to just be patient and keep going with the goal and adjust, some areas where you need to. But I feel like for you, like you've already built this momentum, right? The next 6 months, like I'm sure it's going to be a huge exponential increase compared to the last 12 months. And I do really like the value of 18-month goals because 12 months does seem, that goes by quite quick.
Yeah.
But 18 months, it's like just enough where you could really see the progress from day one.
So that's what, I really like what you said. You learn a lot when you start. So you get those insights, what's working for us and what's not working for us, what ads to run, what kind of content to post. So the first year is probably, technically it is about that. It is about learning and gaining insights, consumer insights, whether it's consumer insights or whether it's insights from your ads that you run or the content that you post. I think that's where we've reflected a lot. And that is why now for the next 6 months, we are expecting an exponential growth. It's just about being optimistic and learning from the mistakes that we made in the past. And it is for everyone else listening to this podcast. If you guys are starting something up, 18 months is a good goal. Keep your goals for the first 18 months. And for the first 12 months, you'll probably be somewhere, whether it's a quarter of that goal or whether it's up to 50% of that goal. But for the last 6 months, you'll definitely push yourself a lot more than what you did in that first year.
It's always uncomfortable, but no matter what you need to do, it's always just starting small with that step one, day one, whatever it is. And that is the whole part. While I'm doing these challenges, it's not something I know a lot about of. I know how to run and I know how to program for that, but then putting that into practice, I just did an ultra marathon the other day. I not once did I learn how to do that in uni in terms of theory wise. I've never done it myself, so I had to learn all these different ways on how I can make it to the finish line. And then also trusting the process, whether it's through nutrition, whether it's through hydration, whether it's through recovery, doing what you can and just trust that process, and then you'll be able to progress on some level that way. In your first year of any new endeavor, I'm going to take starting my business as an example, starting rep coaching, which is resilience, energy, performance. I don't know how to run a business entirely. I know how to train people. I know how to take payments. But then how do I grow that? How do I scale that? How can I go out there and help more people without being there physically in person? How do I live away from back home and start a new life? That's completely from scratch. It's different from just moving out, an hour away from your parents' place. So that first year is all about learning. And we talked about 18-month goals because that is a really good way of making tangible progress. Last year has been completely different. Even 6 months ago, you can say. Those first few months, I lost a lot of my money trying to build the life I want here. And it was a difficult time. But now I'm in a position where I have the privilege to invest more in podcast equipment and now go into a full-time personal training at the gym I work at and paying more rent for that process. So it all starts from just starting that first step.